SpaceX's Starship program, which boasts the world's tallest and most powerful rocket, will finally put people and cargo on Mars. The latest prototype, SN20, is waiting for the chance to go into orbit. Several other prototypes have made flights, ground tests, and sometimes even testing mistakes in the effort to advance future flights, but now we have to see if Elon can make it possible. Let's take a closer look at the SpaceX Starship 20 mission. Is the SpaceX Starship 20 ready for its launch? Reception and analysis of the draft and its timing have been mixed. On one hand, SpaceX's draft EA, completed with oversight from the FFA, gives a number of reasons for optimism. In a sign that SpaceX is taking a practical approach to the inevitable environmental review and launch license approval hurdles standing in front of the orbital South Texas Starship launches, the company has actually pursued what is known as a Programmatic Environmental Assessment, a PEA. SpaceX first needs the FFA turn this first draft P into a favorable environmental assessment. Based on the content of the draft itself and associated dependencies, SpaceX appears to have a decent shot at receiving a Finding of No Significant Impact, FONSI, or Mitigated FONSI, nomination. However, SpaceX began the process of creating that draft as far back as mid-2020, followed by an FAA announcement in November 2020. The implication is that FAA managed to drag out a draft release process that some have projected should have taken 3 to 4 months into an arduous 10 to 15 month ordeal. Combined with the uphill clash, it's starting to look like SpaceX will have to wage for an orbital Starship launch license in South Texas. It's looking progressively possible that Starship, Super Heavy, and Starbase will be technically ready for orbital launch tests well before the FFA is ready to accept or license them. Barring delays, the public now has until mid-October to read and comment on SpaceX's draft PEA, after which the FFA and SpaceX will review those comments and expectantly turn the draft into a completed review. Even if the FFA were to somehow take only 2 months to return a best-case FONSI, clearing Starbase for environmental launch obstacles, it's hard to imagine that the agency could then turn around and approve an orbital Starship launch license, or even a one-off experimental permit, in the last few weeks of 2021. Ultimately, that means that nothing short of a minor miracle is likely to prevent the FFA's environmental review and licensing delays from directly delaying Starship's orbital launch debut. There's at least a chance that Starship, Super Heavy, and Starbase's orbital launch site won't be ready for orbital launches by the end of the year. But it's progressively difficult to envision that all three won't be proof-tested, qualified, and ready for action just a month or two from now. For the time being, we'll just have to wait and see where the cards fall. Here's an overview of key milestones on Starship's road to the Red Planet. Starship prototypes stand at about 160 feet tall, or around the size of a 16-story building, and are built of stainless steel, representing the early version of the rocket that Musk unveiled in 2019. The rocket lifts off on top of Super Heavy booster, which makes up the bottom half of the rocket and stands about 230 feet tall. Together, Starship and Super Heavy are nearly 400 feet tall when stacked for launch. Billionaire and tech genius Elon Musk created SpaceX in 2002 from the sale of 2 earlier businesses, software service internet company Zip2 and online payment benefactor PayPal. His ultimate goal was to make a Mars settlement company. That said, SpaceX has been plenty busy in other realms of space. The company built Dragon cargo ships and Crew Dragon astronaut spaceships for the International Space Station and launched a satellite for recurrent customers aboard the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets. As for Mars, Musk periodically releases new far-out Mars visions and sometimes changes the names and metrics of the systems for sending crews, cargo, and rockets. Musk rebranded his Mars colonizing space flight system as Starship in 2018. Technically, it's 2 parts. Starship is the spaceship/upper stage, and Super Heavy is the rocket booster needed to escape Earth's deep gravity well, not needed for other planets or moons, Musk said in a 2018 tweet. At first, Musk planned to make Starship out of carbon fiber, but in January 2019, he announced that the craft would be built from stainless steel instead. While stainless steel is heavier than carbon fiber, initially increasing the needed fuel for launch, along with the associated cost, Musk said stainless steel has better thermal properties for spaceflight, and so it would reduce the cost in the long run. Musk later said his design change was the best decision he made for the project. Starship has undergone a few more design changes since 2019 too. Musk chose to put 6 Raptor engines on the Starship vehicle instead of 7. He also changed the number of Raptors on the Super Heavy, initially dropping the number from 35 to 31 and then increasing it again to include up to 37 Raptors. A surprise design change to Starship was revealed in 2021 when Musk said watching Sacha Baron Cohen's 2012 film The Dictator inspired him to make the vehicle pointier. Starship's program tested several ground prototypes before attempting flight. The list of major prototypes in 2019 and 2020 include Mark 1, destroyed during a tank pressure test, Mark 2, abandoned for a newer design, Mark 3 SN1, destroyed during a pressurization test, SN2, pressure designed successfully, SN3 destroyed during a test of its pressure tank, and SN4 destroyed during a static fire test following several successful tests. Starship's SN5 and SN6 prototypes conducted low-altitude test hops. SN5 reached an altitude of about 500 feet on August 4, 2020, and moved sideways in the sky to reach its landing area. SN6 also made a 500-foot jaunt on September 3, 2020. Turns out you can make anything fly, Musk tweeted about the SN6 flight, with a video showing a tank-like structure wobbling through the air. SpaceX deliberately destroyed SN7 during a ground test to gather data for future flights. SN8, which took to the air on December 23, 2020, performed complex aerial maneuvers and flips during the program's first high-altitude launch. It flew 7.8 miles or 12.5 kilometers, but failed to stick the landing. According to a video shot from the landing pad that showed it exploding in a fireball on the ground due to the lower-than-expected pressure in the fuel tank header. In a quick sequence in February and March 2021, the Starship program sent aloft 3 more prototypes in high-altitude flights, SN9, 10, and 11. The vehicles flew for about 6 minutes each, but all 3 experienced technical problems during landing that resulted in fiery crashes or after-touchdown explosions. After every flight, Musk sent tweets explaining what had happened and what modifications he'd planned to make to Starship prototypes to improve the program for the next attempt. For example, Musk tweeted after the touchdown explosion of SN11, "Looks like Engine 2 had issues on ascent and didn't reach operating chamber pressure during landing burn. But in theory, it wasn't needed." SpaceX's newest Starship prototype briefly stood atop a Super Heavy rocket booster for the first time on August 6, 2021, marking the tallest ever rocket ever built. "Dream come true," Musk wrote on a Twitter of the stacked Starship. The stacking test at Boca Chica, including mating the 2 vehicles for an hour, which the joint Starship system standing 395 feet for comparison. NASA's huge Saturn V moon rocket used for the Apollo missions was just 363 feet, or 110 meters tall. Individually, the Super Heavy stands 230 feet, 70 meters tall, and Starship SN20 added another 165 feet, or 50 meters of height. The 2 vehicles are predictable to undergo numerous technical tests in August to formulate them for an orbital attempt. SpaceX's Starship SN15 prototype stuck the landing on the 60th anniversary of the United States' first ever crewed spaceflight, when astronaut Alan Shepard blasted into space aboard NASA's Mercury capsule. On May 5, 2021, SN15 soared 6.2 miles, 10 kilometers into the sky, and made numerous maneuvers in mid-air. 6 minutes after takeoff, the prototype made a safe touchdown on a concrete landing pad at Boca Chica. As of August 2021, this was the latest flight for the Starship program. In a flight description, SpaceX representatives said several vehicle changes were present in the new prototype. SN15 has a vehicle improvement across structures, avionics, and software, and the engines that will allow more speed and efficiency throughout production and flight. Specifically, a new enhanced avionics suite, updated propellant architecture in the aft skirt, and a new Raptor engine design and configuration. Regulation remains the big uncertainty as Starship awaits its chance to make an orbital flight test. If all goes according to plan, the spaceship will make a round-the-world trip to splash down off the coast of Hawaii after 90 minutes, while the first stage of the Super Heavy rocket should return to Earth 6 minutes after launch in the Gulf of Mexico. However, the FFA has undertaken an environmental assessment of the Starship's mission, which delayed SpaceX's attempt to the flight in July 2021. Even after the assessment is over, there could be more certifications to consider. It's tough to imagine that the agency will turn around and support an orbital Starship launch license, or even a one-off experimental permit, to launch such a great rocket in the last few weeks of 2021. But we hope that it'll happen soon enough. The SpaceX 20 is ready since 2019. Soon the hurdles will vanish, and the Starship will fly cargo and people on Mars. What do you think about the SpaceX Starship 20? Do you think it's finally ready for orbital testing? Subscribe and click the video on the screen.